Do you want to know the difference between a freeze dryer and dehydrator? Stay tuned. Hey friends, welcome back to our channel, The Purpose Driven Homestead. I'm Amanda, and today we're talking about the difference between a freeze dryer and a dehydrator. Now I figured the best way to do this is to go ahead and compare the two. So we're going to go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison of some fruit that we're going to go ahead and preserve. So we have some bananas, some mangoes, some blueberries, some other things that we'll go ahead and put onto both of the sheets, and then we'll go ahead and show you the difference between the two. Right behind me here, I have our Excalibur food dehydrator. Now the Excalibur food dehydrator has 5 trays. It opens up here, and you can see at the bottom, we have just one tray in right now. You can slide in and out. Now this operates with heat. So you can accomplish the same thing by using your oven. However, this is kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing, and you don't need to keep such an eye on it. I really wouldn't want to have my oven going for that long. Also, the dehydrator is at a lower temperature than what we can get our oven to. Sometimes people can put their oven at a very low temperature. Ours goes to 175. The highest temperature that this goes is 145. A lot of your fruits and vegetables are going to be cooked at 125 or 135. So I definitely wouldn't want to put it in there. It seems like I'd probably overcook it. So we stick with this. This is a really great way of preserving your food. This is shelf stable for approximately 1 to 2 years, depending on what you put in here. We've done everything from fruits and vegetables to apple sauces and making fruit leather to doing beef jerky in here. So this is a really great tool in the kitchen if you're looking to preserve your food and it's not a super expensive tool. Now I really like the portability of this appliance because it's a smaller appliance and it doesn't take a whole lot of room. Normally we have our bread maker sitting right here. So sometimes I don't have room here in our kitchen because we have a smaller kitchen and counter space is definitely limited, so I definitely want to make sure that I maximize my space as I possibly can. So if I have something going on in here and I need the counter space, I'll go ahead and take it into our dining room or our eating kitchen so I can go ahead and finish everything that's in our dehydrator. I have to apologize, our children really like to paint and there's some paint on the front of it and I can't get it off, but this is the door that you open up, and like I said, there's room for 5 trays here. There's the heating element back there and the fan. And then you can see here, this is the controls. It'll tell you exactly what needs to be done for at what temperature, and then there's a timer, of course. These are the trays that come along with our dehydrator tray. You can see that it's like a little mesh that you can go ahead and get all the airflow through each of the fruits and vegetables or jerky, whatever you're gonna put on here. If you're doing anything like a applesauce that you wanna go ahead and make into a fruit leather or any kind of fruit, you can definitely go ahead and put this mat on there and it will make sure that it's not seeping through and it'll dry just like that. You can also purchase the silicone mats that are aftermarket. These are not the Excalibur brand, but we got them from Amazon. We'll make sure that there's a link down below. But this allows us to put a little bit more liquid on the tray than we would with just the mat that it comes with. The dehydrator is absolutely wonderful to have because during the height of garden season, there is a lot of produce that comes out of our garden. And our canners, we have 2 canners and normally they're both going. So I definitely want to make sure that I have another way that I can preserve food. This also allows me to preserve greens, whereas I would have normally go ahead and have to freeze them. This allows me to go ahead and put the kale, collards, anything like that into the dehydrator. It gets nice and crispy, and then I go ahead and blend it up so that we have greens for the rest of the year. During the winter months, it's wonderful to go ahead and put into soups and stews and spaghettis and anything else that I can go ahead and fit into to make sure that we're getting our greens for the winter. The shelf life of your food with your dehydrator is not going to last as long. You're probably going to get about 6 months to 2 years, depending on what you dehydrate from your food that you're preserving in your dehydrator. You're going to get a lot more time on your shelf with a freeze dryer. So let's go ahead and talk about that. The way a freeze dryer works is through sublimation. Now that is a completely different process than what you're going to go ahead and get from the heat in a dehydrator. Now we've done an entire video on sublimation and how the freeze dryer preserve your food, as well as our setup here that we have in our home. So go ahead and click the iCards above once you're done with this video so you can go ahead and see exactly the process. We have the large size freeze dryer. So this is the tray that we have for our freeze dryer. We have 5 of them. These are metal trays, and when we're preserving fruit, we're gonna go ahead and put a piece of parchment paper because it tends to have all of the sugar stick to it. So you wanna make sure that you're putting down parchment paper. They also have some mats that you can go ahead and do, but the parchment paper works just fine for us. We decided, since we're gonna be preserving so much food in this freeze dryer, to go ahead and purchase a separate set of freeze dryer trays. Mamas, definitely get your little ones involved in this. Our kids absolutely loved helping out in the kitchen, and it's a great way of developing knife skills here in our kitchen. So our daughter sat with me and we did the freeze dryer trays. So that is actually going right now. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the rest and put it onto the dehydrator trays and get that going. You can see here that we're starting out with the mangoes. I am just going to skin all of this. Depending on what you are dehydrating at any given time, you want to make sure that some of them you take the skin off. For the mangoes, for example, I definitely want to make sure that I take that off because that's not going to be super enjoyable. I'm just dicing this up. I have done slices in the past. I am just going to go ahead and dice this up today. Anything that you put on your trays, you want to make sure that you're spacing it out evenly. That way there's nice airflow in there and dehydrating it completely. You won't have, some that are completely dry and then some that are not and need more time. Same thing with slicing the bananas. You want to make sure that you are doing somewhat of the same slices. That way you're going to go ahead and get that evenly dehydrated. Here I am just sliding those dehydrator trays into the dehydrator. It's super easy to slide right in. You want to make sure that you don't have anything piled up too high and everything is kind of cut down lower so that there's plenty of airflow between each of the trays. But this took a total of about 22 to 24 hours to dry out. It might have taken a little bit less time, but those blueberries in there, they took a little bit more time. So you just simply put this cover on there and then just start the timer and set it and forget it. While that's all going, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you a little more about the differences between the two. With the dehydrator, you're a little bit limited on what you can dehydrate. You can absolutely do any kind of yogurt in there. You can make yogurt. You can make fruits and vegetables, like I've said, some fruit leathers. You can do jerky in there. But this is going to be a harder consistency, a chewier consistency than what you would get with the freeze dryer. With the freeze dryer, you have the ability to preserve a lot more food. You can do fruits and vegetables, but not only that, you can do meats. You can do them raw or cooked. You can do dairy, so our children drink a lot of milk, and that is a great way of being able to take advantage of sales at the store and preserving it, and then you just reconstitute with water. You can do cheese and make cheese shelf stable. You can also do desserts. I've seen a lot of people do candies and cookies, and we've done some ice cream sandwiches that have come out great. So that's a way, but you can also do meals, which is a huge time saver to me, especially with having a working husband. This is a really great way for me to be able to either reconstitute food before he leaves the house, or you can just grab a Mylar bag, add some hot water to it, and have a full meal right at his desk. So this, you definitely want to make sure that you're paying attention to the fat content that you put into your meals, but we've done chilies. And actually, I'm going to do an entire video here coming up of 5 different meals that you can do in your freeze dryer so that you can have it on the go. If you're camping, if you are moving and need something super convenient, if you are just out in the garden during the summer days and need a convenience meal, you can go ahead and just add water to it and have a nice meal for your family. So that is coming up. Definitely make sure that you are looking out for that video because I'm super excited to share that. If you asked us which one we would prefer, a dehydrator or a freeze dryer, I think we would say a freeze dryer 100 times over because there's so much more that you can do with them. In addition to that, these foods are shelf stable for up to 25 years. Now, this is definitely not what we plan on doing. We keep them in our long-term storage so that we have emergency food, but we also rotate all of this food. You can package them up either in Mylar bags for long-term storage, but you can also keep them in jars as well. So we keep it in our working pantry and we're constantly cycling this food out, but just knowing that if you needed it, instead of purchasing those buckets of food that cost an enormous amount of money, you can just go ahead and freeze dry your own food and it's available on your shelves for an emergency purpose. If you lost your job, if you got sick and couldn't make meals constantly, anything, this is a really great way of being able to just have food that is available, especially in meals that you can just go ahead and reconstitute reconstitute, and eat. The absolute number one reason why we love our freeze dryer over our dehydrator is because of the nutritional value. Because the way the dehydrator works with heat, it's going to go ahead and cook your food and lower down the nutritional value. The same is true as if you're going to go ahead and can your food, you're losing that nutritional value. Whereas with the freeze dryer, you're actually able to retain 97% of the nutritional value that you work so hard for, whether you're growing your garden or shopping farmers markets or anything like that. You definitely want to make sure that you're preserving as much of the nutritional value as you possibly can, and the freeze dryer does just that. A little story for you. We recently had to jump into action real quickly because one of our freezers got turned off and we needed to preserve a whole bunch of chicken all at once. Now, in order for me to preserve that much chicken, I would have had to have the canner going all day. I would have had to do a lot of prep work. Now, with the freeze dryer, I was able to cook up all of those chickens and put it all into the freeze dryer. I was able to get one round of it, and then another round, I did like 2 trays of the chicken, and it was all done. So that was a really great way of being able to preserve that food really quickly. Especially during gardening season when you are canning and you're dehydrating, it's really wonderful to have that freeze dryer because you can not only do those fruits and vegetables from your garden and make it easier on yourself, but you can also do any of the meat that you're growing it as well. We raise chickens, quail, and rabbit, so this is a really great way of being able to preserve that food very quickly instead of having to can it all. Okay friends, it's been about 24 hours since we filmed the video last and everything is completed, so we're gonna go ahead and get everything pulled out of the freeze dryer and the dehydrator and go ahead and do that side-by-side comparison. Now before we do that, I wanna go ahead and mention to you that we're gonna package everything up for our pantry. We're gonna be using the Mylar bags for our freeze-dried goods with an oxygen absorber. And then for our dehydrated goods, we're gonna go ahead and put it into a mason jar. Now, you can put the freeze-dried goods into a mason jar, but we're gonna go ahead and do the Mylar bags. Now, it's important when you're packaging up all of your dehydrated goods to not put an oxygen absorber in there because you can have an issue with botulism. Anytime that you have no air inside of jar and there's any kind of moisture that is in there, that can create an issue with botulism. With the dehydrator, there's still a little bit of moisture in your food, but with the freeze dryer, it pulls out most of the moisture in there, so you're okay to put an oxygen absorber in there. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do today. We're gonna go ahead and start off with the bananas. You can see here, this is the dehydrated banana. You can kind of see that it's like collapsed on itself. It looks a little bit raisiny. I let this go a little bit longer because of the blueberries. The blueberries were not done. But if you pulled it off a little bit earlier, it'd have more like a rubbery, raisiny type of feel. This is more like a banana chip. But you can see that it's not like that snap. Now, here is the freeze-dried banana. It basically looks the same as when we put it onto the tray, and you can see here there's a little snap, and this is the inside. With the banana on the freeze dryer, it really concentrates all of the sugar, so it's going to be a nice sugary snack. Here's the difference in the mangoes. Here, this is freeze-dried and this is dehydrated. You can see it definitely changed colors. You can see here that there is a major difference between the freeze-dried blueberry and the dehydrated blueberry. The freeze-dried really kept its shape and it's nice and airy when you eat it. And this dehydrated one is kind of just shriveled up into a raisin type of consistency. Okay. Now you definitely want to make sure that when you're doing your freeze-dried blueberries that you poke holes in it. That is because you don't want any of the sugars to bubble up and it can escape this skin. Anytime you kind of have this skin, you want to make sure that you either remove the skin or you just make a hole into it so that all of the moisture can run out of the fruit. We've done this before and all of them popped and the sugary kind of mess was all over the place. So definitely make sure that you do that. Here are our apples. They kind of made some chips. And here are the apples that we've done on the freeze dryer. After comparing all the fruits that we've done here today, you can definitely see that there's a difference in the end result. If you'd like more information in regards to the freeze dryer that we have in our home, go ahead and click the link down below and that'll give you a lot more information. We hope you found value in our video today. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Also, if you have any questions in regards to the dehydrator or freeze dryer that we own, definitely leave it in the comments below. We are happy to answer any of your questions. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We would love to have you in our community. As for now, guys, have a blessed day.